Michael Cannon is no ordinary guy, so he's not getting an ordinary introduction. If you want to read about all different publications and speaking events and books he's written and done, Google him, because I'm not going to tell you. Instead, I'm going to tell you a quick story. So when I was an undergrad, I was studying health policy, and I felt like something was missing from my education. There wasn't enough perspective being offered. I'm sure some of you can relate to that. And so I came across Michael's work when I was looking online, and I thought it was fascinating. Here was this guy who was actually combining economics and policy and talking about helping people as opposed to just advancing a system. And I thought it was great. So when I was interning in DC, I kind of stalked him, and I found a panel that he was on, and I made sure that I attended it. And at the end of it, I got up the courage to introduce myself. And he was so kind, he was so patient, I had so many questions about health and economics, and he wanted to talk about all of it. He offered to talk with me more about it if I wanted to, and I'm sure he regrets that because I've taken him up on it many times since then. And I tease him, but he's a really great advocate for everything that we believe in healthcare and freedom. He's been a steady voice for true healthcare reform. I'm sure the needle or the thorn in the side of many people who want to expand government at the expense of people. And he's someone I've turned to many times for insight. He is tireless advocating for a system that actually takes care of people it says it will. And he's one of the few people that can challenge me in nasty injury stories. So please join me in welcoming to the stage my mentor and friend, leader in pro-liberty health policy, Michael Cannon.
Thank you so much, Sloan. I've been introducing myself to everyone here this weekend as I'm the guy who had Sloan Frost as an intern. That's going to be my claim to fame. When I'm dead and gone, that's what people are going to remember about me. Because Sloan Frost is amazing. For those who don't know, Sloan helped to found this organization that has made such a difference in so many people's lives and such a difference in the movement. And I could not be prouder of her or value her friendship more. So, when it comes to health policy, we libertarians face a challenge. And I think it's a challenge we face in a lot of places, but it's even more acute in health policy. We are, to coin a phrase, outgunned, outmanned, outnumbered, and outplanned. And the reason, I have a joke that sort of explains, one of the reasons why this happens. The joke goes like this. What do libertarians and Christian Scientists have in common? They don't do health care. It usually gets a bigger laugh than that. You know why? Because I'm usually speaking to left of center audiences, and they're like, oh, yeah, that's great. It also works for conservatives, by the way. They're like, oh, yes, that's so true. Republicans, and they love laughing at conservatives and Republicans and libertarians, which confirms the truth behind the joke, because most of the audiences I talk to who are interested in policy are left of center. On the left, they have politicians who care about health policy. They've got activists and academics who get into those jobs because they care about health policy, and they have piles and piles of money devoted to finding ways to get the government to take away your freedom to make your own health decisions, okay? Whereas on our side, on the free market side, we don't have the politicians, we don't have the bodies, we don't have the big piles of money. And I'm sort of evidence of that. I'm an example of that. If you had told 23-year-old Michael that, you know what, I got some good news for you. Within 10 years, you are going to be the director of health policy studies at the CATO Institute. And you're going to be in that position for at least, now 18 years. I would have said, oh my God, are you kidding me? That is awesome. Did you say health policy? Because I didn't get into the health policy because I wanted to work in health policy. I got into health policy the same way almost every libertarian or conservative, someone on the free market side does. That's the job that was open, okay? And there are structural reasons for that. I have a lot of theories about it. But my goal today is to try to get a few more bodies into the, to recruit a few more academics or activists or bodies to work for health freedom. Maybe some people who thought they, you like 23-year-old Michael, you're thinking, what? You want me to pursue a career in health policy? Why would I do that? I don't know anything about health policy. It's scary and it's so socialisty. I want to give you a few reasons why you should ignore every other speaker here and all the important issues that they're talking about and all the important threats to freedom and focus the rest of your life and your career on health policy and expanding health freedom. Because if you do that, you will get better sex. I mean, this is a Students for Liberty conference, right? This is what 20-somethings care about, right? So first of all, better sex, more money. Maybe you're one of those econ nerds, one of those markets are cool libertarians. You also get more economic growth. And maybe you're one of those anti-war libertarians who want to totally smash this state and the military-industrial complex and even the Fed for the role that it plays in all of our military adventurism over the seas. Health policy will also get you less war. More sex, more and better sex, health policy. More money, health policy. More economic growth, health policy, less war, health policy. You think I can do it? I'm not sure. You let me know at the end, okay? We'll start with the sex. Odds are that there are at least a few women in here who are or have been on the pill. And if you live in the United States and you use oral contraceptives, you know who you have to go to before you get one of those products? You have to go to a government-appointed gatekeeper. We call them doctors. This is not how it works in more than 100 different countries around the world. In more than 100 countries around the world, women or their boyfriends can just go to the pharmacy or to a drugstore and buy oral contraceptives without a prescription. This government-imposed prescription requirement not only increases the cost of obtaining the pill, both because of the time cost and because the interaction with health insurance, it raises the prices. Ask me later about Obamacare's effect on the price of the pill. But it also reduces, and that, as we know, because the demand curve sloping the way they do, means that less women make use of the pill, and so oral contraceptives are harder to come by, but it also reduces adherence for those who do try to access it because it puts that additional step in the way. And this is stressful. And let's face it, it's unfair if you're the one who has to go to the doctor and you're the one who has to play this greater role in preventing contraception than your partner does. And it would make sense to me if you were less interested in sex. So even if guys, this could mean more sex for you if we had a more egalitarian distribution of the burdens of contraception. And the way you do that is through health policy by getting rid of these ridiculous prescription requirements that the FDA imposes on not just the pill, but all forms of contraception. Some of them, maybe you'll want a prescription requirement in place, but that's something that the manufacturers and the pharmacists can work out without the government telling them to do this, and then certain manufacturers lobbying to keep those restrictions in place so that they can make more and more money off of this racket. And you'd also get more innovation in contraception and ways of delivering that and getting it in people's hands more safely. And speaking of safety, studies have shown that when women self-evaluate for the pill, because there are risks to the pill, when they self-evaluate, they're actually more conservative in the decisions they make than the doctors who are handing out the prescriptions. So, more sex. What about more money? So, I'm old enough to remember the Reagan tax cuts of 1981. I don't remember them very well. But I was there, I was alive when this happened. And the Reagan tax cuts of 1981 returned about 3% of GDP to the people who earned it. I shouldn't even say returned, I hate that. They stopped the government from taking from workers 3% of GDP, okay? That's big, right? That's a lot of money. In health policy, by working for health freedom, we could return in a revenue-neutral way. So without even having to cut government spending, though I would love to do that, a revenue-neutral way, and we could deliver an even bigger tax cut than the Reagan tax cuts. And it cut simply by reforming the way the government treats employer-sponsored health insurance under the tax code. Under the tax code, if your employer gives you $1 worth of income or $1 worth of compensation as cash, you have to pay taxes on that. On average, average marginal rate, 33%. So you lose 33 cents of that dollar. But if your employer gives you $1 of compensation as health insurance, no taxes at all. you get $1 worth of health insurance. Now, this sounds like a great deal to a libertarian because, wow, okay, untaxed activity, this is what we're going for. But what it really does is it creates basically an individual mandate to purchase a certain type of health insurance. When your employer buys that health insurance for you, they're not getting that money out of corporate profits or executive salaries or anything like that. They're reducing your wages in order to buy that health insurance. They're reducing it by a lot, about $16,000 for workers with family coverage on average. Add that up across all workers in the entire economy, employers are controlling $1 trillion of their workers' earnings and using it to choose their health insurance plan. By the way, a lousy type of health insurance, it disappears when your job does. There's no reason it has to do that. And what happens if you as the worker want to say, no, that's my $16,000, or workers collectively wanted to just say, you know what, we'll take all $1 trillion of our earnings that you're spending and we'll buy our own, choose our own health insurance. What would happen? That 33% penalty. If you want to control your own health decisions, the government penalizes you. But there's a way of changing the tax treatment of health care that would allow you to take all take all $16,000 of that as income without tax consequences, without increasing your taxes at all. That would allow workers to take all $1 trillion of that earnings that their employers now control. You know how much of GDP that $1 trillion makes up? 4%. 4% of GDP, that's about 1/3 more than the Reagan tax cuts. Mind you, this is not money that would be coming out of government budgets or not even going into government budgets and staying with the people who earned it. But it would eliminate a penalty that the government imposes on workers controlling their own money and letting them control $1 trillion of their earnings they previously did not control because of tax policy. In my book, that is a tax cut. It would be a larger tax cut than the Reagan tax cuts. And all of the elements of this sort of a plan they're already in legislation that people have introduced in Congress right now. Focus your life on health policy, you can help make tax cuts that are even bigger than the Reagan tax cuts become a reality. Number 3, economic growth. Maybe you're, as I said, a markets are cool libertarian. You believe in the ability of free markets to raise incomes, and you want to eliminate government, you want to eliminate taxes, you want to eliminate government regulation. Health policy is the area for you. What's one of the biggest complaints people make about the US health sector? It's that we spend more money on healthcare than any other country. 1/6 or 1/5 of GDP, 18% of GDP, well more than any other country does. And that's right, and it's lamentable because we should not be spending that much on GDP on healthcare. And the reason I say that is because all the research that has been done, including some very clever, very reliable research designs, have found that 1/3 of what we spend on healthcare in the United States is pure waste. It does nothing to make the patient any healthier. It does nothing to make the patient any happier. It doesn't deliver any surplus at all to the consumer. It is a pure transfer from taxpayers or premium payers to healthcare providers. 1/3 of US healthcare spending is waste. So if we return all 18% of the GDP that we spend on healthcare to consumers, let them decide how to spend that money rather than the government or their employers deciding. You know what they'll do? They will consume a lot less health care. And providers and insurance plans will fall over themselves to find more efficient ways of providing them health care, including getting rid of all that wasteful stuff. And if we do that and get rid of 1/3 of health spending, that's 6% of GDP that we are freeing up for people to spend on other things. That is like a 6% boost in economic productivity that goes into the baseline and continues to grow year after year. 6%, maybe that doesn't sound very big. It is 15 times the economic impact of repealing the Jones Act. 15 times. We should repeal the Jones Act, by the way. It's a terrible law. But if you want economic growth, that's not going to have the impact that reforming healthcare is going to have. That's not going to have the impact on people's lives and their standards of living that reforming healthcare will have. And then finally, number 4, war. Maybe you're one of the anti-war libertarians. What possible connection could health policy have to reducing US military adventurism overseas? Well, it has to do with a little government agency that I like to call the Veterans Health Administration. Maybe you've heard of it. And not just the Veterans Health Administration, but the entire VA. They provide life, disability, and health insurance benefits to soldiers, sailors, and airmen for service-related injuries and illnesses. What possible connection could this have to foreign policy? Well, it turns out that some of the biggest financial costs, maybe the biggest financial cost of military conflict, is not actually bullets or tanks or gasoline. It's veterans benefits. One of the reasons that veterans benefits are so expensive is because they last, the veterans benefits that Congress has to pay relating to a given military conflict, they have to pay for decades. Okay? It's not just a one-time, you shoot them and then you're done with that expenditure. They have to pay for decades. And they don't peak. The cost of veterans benefits don't peak until like 40, 50 years after the end of that military conflict. So they just rise and rise and rise and rise and rise. But how does Congress fund veterans benefits? Do they fund those implicit promises at the moment a soldier or sailor or airman enlists or accepts a commission, or the moment that Congress authorizes, declares war, or more likely the moment at which the president declares war without Congress? No, they kick the can down the road. They make all of those decisions without having to account of the largest financial costs associated with military conflict. What difference do you think it might make if they actually had to give up more butter in order to get all of these guns? You know, it's not going to, if you're one of those war-loving people who want to, you know, make sure that that we're going to declare war on Germany and Japan, that we're going to go respond to Al Qaeda, you know, after September 11th, that's going to happen even if Congress has to come up in real time with the money to fund veterans benefits. If they have to give up more butter in order to get those guns. That's still going to happen, but in marginal cases, like maybe the Iraq War, or maybe the 10th or 11th year that we're in Afghanistan, in those cases, if they have to come up with that money, they're going to make different decisions. Hillary Clinton said she voted for the AUMF with the best information, because with the information she had, that's the best decision she could make. Do you think that if she had more information, okay, wait. Hillary's not a good example. I have to think there are other members of Congress who might have made a different decision if they had more information. And forcing members of Congress to come up with the money to fund veterans benefits in real time is highly likely to have an effect on U.S. military adventurism in those marginal cases. More pushback against the president when he commits troops to battle without congressional authorization. More pushback against things like the AUMF that got us into the Iraq War. So even if what motivates you is a desire to promote peace and reduce war, I am telling you, health policy is for you. We need the help. This is an area where the libertarian movement is very far behind, but we have a fantastic message, and we need the bodies. I hope that I will hear from at least some of you in the days and weeks after SFL's LibertyCon, and I thank you very much.